So today we're going to be doing a loose version of the Canons of facial proportions, or at least some of them, just to get you started. So these are the rules or guidelines to what makes a realistic face. I'm using a model for this. So before I include my model, I will sketch out some of these rough guidelines. For this, if you don't have a willing participant or you would prefer to, you can use a mirror at home. Things first is we're going to draw a circle, and when you sketch like this, you want to be sure that you're using your larger motor skills like your elbow and your arm, your upper arm, to draw the circle rather than just using your wrist and your hand, so that it has more continuity and it's smoother. So even if you're doing it small in your sketchbook, that's one way to sketch, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay, because we're drawing something that's an organic shape. So you're going to do your midline, and I am using green colored pencil for this part of the sketch, so that you can see that it's separate, the outline. These lines that you're going to be drawing, that I'm drawing in green, you want to do pretty lightly. I'm going to be drawing them darker so that you can really see, and then you guys are just doing it pretty light. Okay, so I start with my square. This is going to be your brow line, and this is your midline. So when all of this is said and done, those will be, that this stays the center. All right, so you'll start with your midline and your brow line. You mark everything in thirds. Okay, you have 1/3 here, third here, third here. Okay, and this third up here. I'll mark that down a little bit. Okay, and then this becomes your hairline. And then you go ahead and you have your eye line here. Okay, and then this is your nose line underneath. Okay, and then at the bottom of this circle, we have this extend out. There's the lips, and then we'll do 2 more, 1, 2, and then this is the chin. Okay, so this area, we have this come straight down. We'll have this curve, we'll draw a box here. We'll have this curve in. Okay, so we'll have this straight, and then to this mark, have this kind of curve in. And the jawline depends on how, if you want to make it more masculine or more feminine, that this is kind of up to you how you want to draw this. So this here will be his ears, so you'll connect, so like usually where the top of the eyebrow, the brow line, you'll have this connect down, and it connects to where the tip of the nose is. So on this line, that this all connects, and the tip of the ear to the brow line and down in the nose, have that connect. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and leave this here for a few seconds so that you guys can be sure that you have all the labeling. I know that this has a drawing on top of it, but you can still see the guiding lines. Up a little bit more and have it be a little shorter. And all of these things, these are just the canons of facial proportions, that it really is going to change heavily based on the person. So there's some other rules coming up here that are going to be slight variations depending on your person. But you want to think of your eye line. So you have your head is 5 eyeballs wide. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that you're considering that the whole way. All right, still sketching with my green colored pencil. I'm calling in my model and the pup to come sit for me, and I am sketching in the eyes because eyes are something that are deeply personal and will vary quite a bit. And so some of the rules change a little bit based on my model. And so it's helpful to have the person or a reference image there for you. If you would like to use a full completely front view of your model, you can. For this, that could be helpful. And so I am changing the jawline just a little bit, and I am making the lips. So my lips need to connect. So where the pupils are, so the centers of the eyes should be where the corners of the mouth connect. And so I'm just connecting those lines. Obviously, these are things that you would want to erase later, that I'm drawing them with a non-erasable colored pencil for this so that you guys can see this, or at least hopefully can see it a little bit. And I am sketching where the bottom line of his eyes are down here. Something that you can do if you really like practicing these canons of proportions and practicing human anatomy is doing more practice with planar anatomy drawings or human planar drawings, which is essentially breaking up the figure into three-dimensional planes and lines to show those angles and how the planes of the face, or if you imagine there were planes on your face, how they would bend into space to show that some of them go back and some of them are more frontal, and where those planes are broken up into pieces. I will add an example image to the side for you. So I am just now mapping out some of his hair. So the hairline doesn't really matter so much since he has some kind of bangs almost in this image or video that sometimes he combs his hair to the side, and then I would want to use that line that we created there. But for now, I'm just doing general facial features and general head shape. Here I want the corners of the eyebrows to kind of turn up at the ends a little bit, and this would be an area where I would show that the plane kind of goes to the side if I were doing a planar drawing. But since I'm not, I have to use my reference person, and that I have to consider where I'm shading and the shape of the face overall from observation. Now, the corners of the nose, the tip of the nose, I'm going to lower it a little bit based on my observation of my figure. I'm having him turn his head towards me so that I say, your nose should be pointed at my nose when I'm looking at you, that kind of helps. And the nostrils, the edges of the nostrils overlap the eyes a little bit, but the general rule is that the corners of your eyes, if you draw straight down, that should be where the width of your nostrils is connected to. So that the corners of your nostrils and your eyes. So I drew that for reference, and then I go over it a little bit just because his is a little bit wider or broader. That these are general, non-gender specific, for the most part, canons of facial proportions. So they can be altered to be more masculine or more feminine. And you know that a lot of male features are a little bit more angular and female features are a little bit more soft and smaller. Usually eyes are larger for women, and that men have maybe a little bit
more stronger jawline and a little stronger brow might stick out a little bit more. Your eyes are generally closer to halfway down your face than you think. That I get a lot of beginning drawing students that are more likely to put their eyes somewhere where their forehead would be. But that's just not the case if you include the hairline, that your eyes are usually closer to halfway down the face. I'm shortening his chin a little bit. I'm talking here about the full body proportions. I drew a tiny model to show, but it's really hard to see in there. But that your head is now a unit that means one, and 8 heads stacked on top of each other of that person should be about their height. So you are 8 heads tall. It used to be in the Greek canons, it was 7, and then around Renaissance, they went with a sleeker 7.5, and I think that it's known now that it's 8, since likely shortly after that rather than showing a whole lot of muscle, that it's 8 heads tall now. And so I'm never like a floating head, so I am mapping out where his shoulders will be based off of that next head down, so the next unit. So one head, the head after that would be actually his nipple line, if he was standing up straight facing completely forward. So these are just guides that you're learning for later. Obviously, nobody's standing perfectly still all the time and forward facing perfectly, but once you know these, that it can help you imagine things from other angles as well. So that this is just to get you started. I'm going in now with a charcoal pencil, which you guys have in your kits, just to outline and show. I'm showing shadow. Here in a minute, I will change the lighting conditions so that it's easier for me to get a more clear view of where the shadows will be on his face. So I will move my light here in just a second. So the shadows are a little stray here, but I am starting to map out where his nose is and everything. All right, now that I have just some of the main parts down, I switched over the light so that the light is on my model, and I will start shading as I go. This helps me to define some of the features a little better, and to show not only the canons of facial proportions, but how it'll end up being used in a practical way. So this is a really, really quick, like 10-minute sketch that's been sped up quite a bit. So that we're going ahead and just he and I are just kind of talking, so sometimes his mouth moves a little bit, but I'm shading just what I see based on observation. And, you know, if this was kind of a planar drawing, that sometimes planar can help you to know where to shade, or you can shade in more block ways and kind of erase out as you go. All right, so I move my light here again, and I get started again so that I can see some more shadows, that this is just kind of best practice for me to really see what I'm working with here. And I'm shading in his ears a little bit, shading the side of his face. I use my overlapping ovals for the most part, but when I'm going kind of fast, I use hatching almost in like a zigzag pattern, which I should slow down and do individual hatching lines so that I can have more craftsmanship. That the way that I do it might be a little bit more expressive if that's what you're trying to get across, that can be a good thing. And I'm just showing in how you block in hairs and showing that the hair is there. You don't have to draw every single hair, and especially with women, if you get used to drawing that way, rather than just drawing the what you see values, that their hair can end up looking a little bit like a broom. So be careful that you can erase out the highlights of the hair in sections that you don't necessarily need to draw every single hair, because not every single hair is dark. Maybe they're blonde, like my model here. That wouldn't be representative of him if I did that. That might look like maybe someone else. So this quick 10-minute sketch is just sped up just a little bit so you can see still everything's pretty loose. It shouldn't take us too terribly long to achieve these, even with shading. That I'm just loosely shading with the charcoal pencil. You don't have to shade with charcoal. But when I do shade with charcoal, usually I start in the upper left and then move my way down so that I'm not getting charcoal all over the place. Now this is just a start to the sketching. I would continue sketching down his neck. Make sure to not create floating heads. We do this by creating shoulders. Thanks so much for watching.